you ever rent a cabin in the middle of nowhere and the owner tells you not to respond, if someone calls your name outside, just leave, because out there, it doesn't need to see you to find you. I wasn't supposed to be there alone. That's probably the part that bothers me the most. The cabin was something my friend group had planned months in advance. Just a weekend getaway, disconnect from everything, drink, hike, do nothing. But 2 days before the trip, everyone backed out. Work, family stuff, excuses, and I had already paid, non-refundable, so I went anyway. The place was about an hour and a half outside Jackson, Wyoming, the kind of location where GPS gives up halfway through. No signal, no nearby houses, just trees, hills, and long stretches of dirt road. When I finally reached the cabin, it was already getting dark. That deep, quiet kind of dark you only get away from cities. There was a lockbox with a key, and taped next to it, a folded piece of paper. I assumed it was instructions. Wi-Fi password, generator info, something like that. But it wasn't. It was handwritten, messy, like someone had written it in a hurry. If you hear your name outside after dark, do not answer. I actually laughed when I read it. I thought it was the owner trying to be funny. Had some spooky cabin vibe. Looking back, I wish I had taken it seriously. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up. Not suddenly, not like a nightmare, just awake. Then I heard it. Ryan, my name, from outside. Then it came again. Ryan, same voice, same tone, calm, almost patient. Then something else started. Footsteps, slow, circling the cabin, like it already knew. I was inside. Around 1:50 a.m., it started again. Ryan, closer this time, right outside the door. Then the doorknob moved, slowly, testing it. And then, why won't you answer? That's when I realized it wasn't just calling me, it was learning. And then it spoke again from behind me, inside the cabin. Ryan, the next morning, I checked my phone. One voicemail. I played it. It was my voice. Ryan. If you ever rent a remote cabin and the power turns on by itself, don't assume it's faulty wiring, because sometimes something inside wants you to see. Lucas Reed had been driving for nearly 6 hours when he finally turned onto the dirt road. By that point, the world already felt far away. Gas stations stopped appearing, radio stations faded into static. Even the sky felt emptier. It was somewhere deep in rural Montana. No signal, no traffic, no signs of life, just long stretches of pine trees and fading daylight pressing in from both sides of the road. The cabin didn't appear gradually, it was just there. One moment, trees. The next, a structure sitting in the middle of silence. Small, wooden. Lucas slowed the car. Something about the place made him hesitate. Not fear, not yet, just a quiet resistance, like his body didn't want to go any closer, but he needed this. After months of burnout, anxiety, and nights where sleep never came, this was supposed to fix things. So he parked, stepped out, and immediately noticed something strange. There were no sounds, not even wind. The trees stood completely still. No insects, no distant animals, nothing. Just silence so complete, it felt like pressure. Lucas unlocked the door, pushed it open, and stepped inside, then stopped. Every light in the cabin was already on. Living room glowing, kitchen bright, hallway lit end to end, even the bedroom already illuminated. Owner probably left them on, he muttered, but something about it felt off. Not careless, not accidental, intentional, like someone had turned them on for him. He shook the thought away, walked through the cabin, and began turning them off. Click, dark, till the cabin finally felt normal. That night, Lucas slept, deep, heavy, the kind of sleep that feels like disappearing. Until 3:07 a.m., his eyes opened, and for a moment, he didn't understand what was wrong. Then he realized the room was bright. Every light was on again. Lucas didn't move. He just stared, trying to think, trying to remember. Did I forget? No, that wasn't possible. He got up, walked through the cabin again. Every switch up, every bulb glowing. He turned them off again, slower this time. Click, listen, click, listen, nothing. Morning came and everything felt normal again. That night, he flipped the main breaker. No power, no chance. 3:07 a.m. Lights were on, even though there was no electricity. Then he heard it, a hum, low, constant, inside his head. 4 yen weed, Witterty died. Then he heard it, a hum, low, constant, inside his head. 4 yen weed, Hanabuli of building. The hallway light turned on, leading to the back room. The door was open. I didn't open that. Stay. No. Stay. Lucas ran, grabbed his keys, threw the door open, and stopped. It was morning. The cabin behind him, still glowing, and inside, shapes, watching. Weeks later, it followed him. Every night, 3:07 a.m., all the lights turn on, and just before they do, he hears it. Stay. And now, the walls are shifting very slowly while he sleeps. If you ever stay near a frozen lake in winter, and you hear footsteps on the ice at night, don't go check, because sometimes what's walking out there isn't on the surface. Ethan Cross didn't take the job because he liked isolation. He took it because he needed money, and this job paid more than anything he'd done before. The offer came through a contractor he'd worked with once before, remote maintenance work in Alaska. A small research outpost had been shut down months ago, but some of the monitoring equipment was still active. They needed someone to go out, check the systems, fix whatever was still running, and file a report. Simple work, high pay, no supervision. The catch was the location. It was far enough out that the last leg of the trip wasn't even a road, just a narrow snow trail barely visible under layers of ice and wind-packed snow. The kind of place where GPS signals don't just weaken, they disappear completely. Ethan didn't care. He'd worked worse jobs in worse places. At least that's what he told himself. The cabin came into view without warning. One moment, he was driving between dense walls of frozen trees, headlights cutting through a tunnel of white and shadow. The next, the trees were gone, and there it was. A small wooden cabin sitting beside a massive frozen lake that stretched out into darkness. Flat, endless, silent. Ethan slowed the truck, studying the place. There was something strange about how it looked. Too still, too quiet, like it had been placed there instead of built. But after 6 hours of driving, his body was too tired to care about instincts. He parked. The moment he stepped out, the cold hit him harder than expected. Not just cold air, this was something sharper. It cut through his jacket, through his gloves, straight into his chest. His boots crunched loudly in the snow as he walked toward the cabin. The sound echoed farther than it should have, bouncing across the frozen lake and back again. That was the first thing he noticed, how far sound traveled out there. The second thing was how nothing answered it. No wind through the trees, no distant animals, no shifting ice, just silence, complete and absolute. Inside, the cabin was exactly what he expected. Basic, functional, a bed, a heater, a small kitchen setup, and a desk with old equipment logs. Everything looked untouched, like no one had been there in months. Ethan set his gear down and got to work. He checked the monitoring systems, recalibrated a few devices, and replaced a damaged cable outside near the lake's edge. By the time he finished, the sky had already darkened into something deeper than night. There were no stars, no moon, just a dim, heavy darkness pressing down over the landscape. The lake reflected it all back, an empty black mirror. Ethan went back inside, locked the door, and turned on the heater. The quiet returned immediately, wrapping around him like something physical. He tried not to think about it, made some food, checked his notes, then went to bed. He woke up at 1:40 a.m. At first he didn't know why. There was no dream, no sudden movement, just that strange feeling of being pulled out of sleep without reason. He lay there for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, trying to drift back under. Then he heard it, a single sound, crunch. Ethan's eyes opened fully. He didn't move, listened, silence. Then again, crunch. This time, there was no mistaking it. Footsteps, on snow, Ethan sat up slowly, his breath fogging faintly in the cold air of the room. He looked toward the window, but from his angle, he couldn't see the lake directly. Another step, closer. That's when he got out of bed. He grabbed his flashlights and moved toward the window. Each step inside the cabin felt too loud now, like the silence outside was pressing in, amplifying everything. He reached the glass and shined the beam outward. The light cut across the frozen lake. Nothing, just smooth, untouched ice. No movement, no figure, no explanation. The sound had stopped. Ethan stood there for a moment, waiting, then lowered the flashlight slightly. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe it was the ice shifting under pressure. Temperature changes could cause expansion, contraction, noises that sounded like footsteps if you didn't know better. That had to be it. He turned away from the window. Crunch. Right behind him. Ethan froze. The sound wasn't distant anymore. It was close. Too close. He turned back slowly, lifting the flashlight again, and this time he saw something. A mark on the snow near the edge of the lake. A single footprint. Ethan stared at it, his brain trying to process what he was seeing. Then another footprint appeared, right beside it, pressed down into the snow, as if something invisible had just stepped forward. Then another, and another, moving steadily across the surface of the lake, toward the cabin. Ethan stumbled back from the window, his chest tightening. There was no one there, nothing visible, but the footprints kept forming, one after another, closing the distance. They stopped at the edge of the lake, just before the shoreline, facing directly toward him. The silence returned, heavy, waiting. Then something new began, a different sound, not above the ice, below it, a scraping noise, slow, dragging, like something moving beneath a solid surface. Ethan's stomach dropped. He stepped forward again, without meaning to, drawn by something he couldn't explain. The flashlight beam trembled slightly as he pointed it toward the lake. The ice looked the same, solid, thick, unbroken, but the sound was unmistakable. Something was underneath, moving. A thin crack formed, right where the footprints ended, a hairline fracture stretching across the surface. It spread slowly, not randomly, purposefully, toward the cabin, toward him. Ethan took a step back, then another, but he couldn't look away. The crack extended further, branching slightly, like veins forming beneath the ice. Then it stopped, right near the shoreline, right in front of the cabin, and then he saw it, a shape beneath the ice, a hand, pressed up from below, pale, still, too clear to be a reflection. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The hand didn't move at first. It just stayed there, flat against the underside of the ice, like it was waiting. Then it shifted, slowly sliding sideways beneath the surface, following the crack, getting closer. Ethan stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlights. The hand moved again, faster this time, gliding under the ice like it wasn't limited by anything. Then it stopped, directly below where he had been standing, and tapped, 3 times, from under the ice. Ethan ran. He didn't think, didn't grab anything. He ran to the bedroom, slammed the door, and locked it. He stayed there the rest of the night, sitting against the wall, listening. Every sound felt amplified, every second stretched, but nothing else came. No footsteps, no scraping, just silence. Morning came like nothing had happened. The sunlight reflected off the lake, bright and blinding. Ethan stepped outside cautiously. The snow was untouched. No footprints, no cracks, no marks of any kind. The ice looked perfect, smooth, unbroken. He stood there for a long time, trying to convince himself, trying to find logic, explanations. It had to be. But that night, it came back, earlier this time, louder, more certain. The footsteps didn't stop at the lake. They reached the shore, then the cabin, then the porch. Ethan stood in the middle of the room, frozen in place as the sound circled him, slow, heavy, measured. Then it stopped, right outside the door. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Then something else started, water, dripping. At first he thought it was the sink, or maybe melting ice from his boots, but the sound wasn't coming from below, it was coming from above. He looked up, a dark patch was forming on the ceiling, spreading, slowly, like something wet was seeping through the wood. Drop, A single drop of freezing water hit the floor, then another. The patch grew larger, and then a handprint appeared, pressed outward, from the other side, from above. Ethan grabbed his keys and ran. He didn't stop to think, didn't pack anything. He just left, drove until the trees came back, until the road returned, until the world felt real again. Weeks later, he checked the job records. There was no assignment, no cabin, no lake, no contract, nothing. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, he hears it again. Crunch, crunch. And sometimes, when the room is completely still, he hears something else. Water dripping from above, where there shouldn't be anything at all.